Hey guys, what's up? So, Valve came out with this update, right, on October 23rd, in which you can now trade up reds to golds. And while everyone's freaking out about that, they also changed fundamentally how trade-ups work, which is arguably, just as bad or even worse for, the skins market for people who buy, shit in bulk in mass. So, I'm going to explain to you the new trade-up, the mathematics behind it, and how you can, leverage yourself to get some good fillers because they're still it's still unknown and still cheap and out there. So I figure I'll start from the bare bones basics for anyone just coming in not knowing anything about trade ups. It's very simple, right? You have different tiers of items in CS: blue, purple, pink, red, gold now. Um, and if you want to move from a lower tier into a higher tier, you put in 10 and you would get 1 from the next tier above that. So you have 10 inputs and you get 1 output. Now the output is based on what you put in your inputs, right? So it's going to be from the same collection. CS2 releases skins in collections, so you could just take a look on a website. And it's also your wear. You have gun wares, and that'll be, determined by a float formula, which is what changed in this most recent update. Now, what's a float? Right? Float ranges from 0 to 1. It's a decimal, and it determines how worn your gun looks in game, right? A 0 would be a perfect, pristine skin with no scratches, and 1 would, of course, have the most. It would look the ugliest, quote unquote. Now, your gun can be anywhere from 0 to 1, but most guns have what we call float caps, which means, there's an endpoint, a bound on either side. It could be 0 to 1. A lot of them, for example, have 0.6, 0.06 to 0.8. And this part right here, our float caps, is what Valve changed their equations on to determine floats, and that's why trade-ups are different now. So we're going to do a quick example, very simple, bare bones basic, just to show you how the math works behind it now. Alright, here's a little graphic for you. I have our before on the left side, so look on this side for the time being. For example, for the sake of the example, we're going to keep our float range at 0.00 to 0.5. It can't be 0.6, for example. Now we have our 10 guns as inputs, and we have our 10 accompanying floats, right? They range anywhere from 0 to 0.5, as I said. So what we're going to do is just take all of these up and find an average, right? There's 10 skins. We add all of these up, and we get 1.19, right? So moving in a little closer, we're going to just find the average, and we get 0.119, right? Just carry that decimal over to the left. And that's what I call the float factor, because I don't know what the fuck else to call it. So that's the average float of all of the skins in your inputs. And from there, we just take our simple average, and then we apply it to our gun. So whatever, we do our trade up, we get it, and we get gun B. And gun B's float value is going to be determined by this float factor and the float cap itself of gun B. So if it was a full cap skin, goes from 0 to 1, all we would do is take this range right here, right? That's 1 minus 0, and we're going to multiply it by our factor here, and we get 0.119. So the skin would be minimal wear. But if instead the cap was 0.0 to 0.5, our range would be 0.5. And so our math equation would change a little bit. It would be 0.5 times our float factor. And you just divide that by 2, 5.9, something like that. And that's going to be fact new. So you could see, just because of our output, the float cap matters so much because it quite literally changed a minware to a fact new skin, and we didn't change our inputs whatsoever. So now let's look how it changed in the new update. So same setup as before, right? We have our 10 floats here. It all adds up to 1.19, but we actually can't do that. Like I said before, this gun is going to range from 0 to 0.5. And while this didn't matter before, now we have to take whatever our float range is, and we have to make it so it equals 1, right? So it's going to use 0 to 1 every time. So it's going to take your range and force it to be 1. So I use this number, for simplicity's sake, obviously. Right, our range right here is 0.5, so all we have to do is multiply each float by 2, effectively. Since this is a very simple example, right, you'd have to do all this math again, but all we have to do is, multiply 1.19 times 2, and we'll get 2.38. Instead of this, we have 2.38 divided by 10, and we get 0.238, and that's our new float factor. So clearly, our inputs now matter directly, right? You have to account for your float cap, or else, this could blow up very easily, right? If you have a skin that's only 0 to 0.05 and you have 0.04 right here, you would have to multiply this by 20, meaning that's 0.8. So you're going to get a disgusting looking shitty battle scarred skin. But from here, it's pretty much the same thing. So our output, gun B, if it's 0 to 1, pretty easy, right? It's going to be 0.38. So that's now field tested. You know, same skins, 1 day later update. We went from minware to fact new here. Now we're at field tested. Off the rip. What if we go from 0 to 0.5? You know, then we go back to 119. So we're back to minware. So essentially, you know, we've moved down an entire rarity, which of course is going to affect your price. And the reason for this change, without a doubt, is because a lot of knives carry this float cap right here, 0 to 0.08. So if, you know, Valve effectively raises all of the float factors, quote unquote, right, it's going to be much harder to get like in this range right here. Like before, it would be super easy had they not, you know, fucked with the float values a little bit. But now it'll make it so, you know, this is sort of evenly distributed along this line. And a lot of knives are also 0 to 1. You're doing trade-ups. Valve wants to profit from these trade-ups, right? You're gambling, so the house is always going to win. So you have a lot of skins like the Lore Knife, Safari Mesh, Boreal Forest, all this shit. And they range from 0 to 1. So they want these float factors to be higher because that'll push towards the lower end, meaning a lot of people are going to get really shitty tier knives. So your trade-ups are going to be harder. Right, that makes sense, right? It's pretty intuitive why Valve would make trade-ups worse when adding the ability to trade up to knives. If I have any final remarks, I would say eliminate the scaling as best as possible, right? If you want to trade up to a knife, we're going to have to use this range right here of 0 to 1. So find reds that have a range of 0 to 1, and if you can't find any ones with 0 to 1 that you in the collection that you want to get a knife from, go for the biggest possible range, right? If something's like 0.15 to 0.5, that sucks. That's 0.35. You're going to have to multiply everything by 3. But if you have, you know, 0 to 0.8, you know, that's much less. Like, you're only going to have to multiply by like 1.15 or something like that. Some small scale factor like that. So, you know, make the range as big as possible. Before you wanted it to be as low as possible, but now you want the exact opposite, which means there's a lot of cheap skins, trade-up fillers right now that are extremely cheap. One I have for you is the MP7 Astrolabe. This is from the graphic design collection. Fact new hasn't changed, right? People are freaking out, selling all their fucking knives and shit. They're not focusing on trade-up fillers right now. $1.50 right now per. Once people figure this shit out, and it's a light blue, so it's not gonna go up crazy, but I can see it going to like $5-6 over time, because this market will regain its footing. It's a market. After all, people are gonna FOMO back in. Hopefully you kept your skins and didn't panic. But if you didn't, take this opportunity to buy up on all the trade-ups and win the next wave of CS money coming in. So, cheers, boys. Hope you learned something. Thanks.